The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the weathered saloon, and Grace Jameson pressed her gloved hand against the window, trying to calm the thundering of her heart as she stared at the dusty main street of Eureka, Nevada. She had come all this way to meet a man she had never seen, a rancher named Adam Zimmerman who had placed an advertisement for a bride back east. And now she was here with secrets that could get her killed or worse, thrown into prison for a crime she did not commit. The year was 1878, and the world was unforgiving to women alone, especially women running from the law. Grace stepped down from the coach, her traveling dress clinging to her slim frame in the dry desert heat. At 23 years old, she had learned more about survival in the past 6 months than most women learned in a lifetime. Her auburn hair was pinned neatly beneath her bonnet, and her green eyes scanned the street with a mixture of hope and fear. She carried only one small trunk, everything she owned in the world now reduced to a few dresses, some undergarments, and a photograph of her late mother. A tall man emerged from the general store across the street, and Grace felt her breath catch. He was broad-shouldered and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that fell just past his collar. He wore dusty work clothes and a hat pulled low, but as he approached, she could see his face clearly. He was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and eyes the color of rich coffee. He looked to be in his late 20s, perhaps 28 or 29, Miss Jameson. His voice was deep and steady with a gentleness that surprised her. "Yes, Mr. Zimmerman. Adam, please," he smiled, and it transformed his serious face into something warmer. "Welcome to Eureka. I hope your journey was not too difficult." Grace wanted to laugh at that. Her journey had been a nightmare of fear and desperation, fleeing from Pennsylvania, where she had been accused of stealing a substantial sum of money from the wealthy family she had worked for as a governess. She had not stolen anything, but the evidence had been carefully arranged against her by someone who wanted her gone, and no one would have believed a poor working woman over the prestigious Harrington family. "It was long, but I am grateful to be here," she said instead, accepting his offered arm as he gestured toward a wagon. Adam loaded her trunk with ease, and she noticed the way his muscles flexed beneath his shirt. He helped her up onto the wagon seat with surprising gentleness, his hands strong but careful. As they began the ride out to his ranch, Grace tried to memorize everything about the town. Eureka was a mining community, bustling with activity despite the harsh climate. The mountains rose in the distance, purple and imposing against the brilliant blue sky. "My ranch is about 5 miles outside of town," Adam explained as they rolled along the rutted road. "I have about 200 head of cattle, some horses, and I am building up the place. It is not fancy, but it is honest work and good land." "It sounds wonderful," Grace said, and she meant it. After the fear and uncertainty of the past months, the idea of a simple life on a ranch seemed like heaven. "I should tell you," Adam continued, his eyes on the road ahead, "I am not much for fancy words or romantic notions. I needed a wife because running a ranch alone is hard work, and I thought it was time to start thinking about a family. But I will treat you with respect, and I will provide for you." "I hope that is enough." Grace felt tears prick her eyes. "That is more than enough, Mr. Zimmerman." "Adam," he glanced at her then, and something shifted in his expression. "You look tired, Miss Jameson, or may I call you Grace? Please do." "Grace." He said her name like he was tasting it. "We will take things slow. I have a separate room prepared for you, and we can marry whenever you feel ready. There is no rush." This kindness, so unexpected, made Grace's guilt weigh heavier. She should tell him the truth. She should warn him that she was not just a mail-order bride seeking a new life, but a woman wanted by the law. But the words stuck in her throat, and she told herself she would find the right moment later. The ranch, when it came into view, was modest but well-maintained. A sturdy house stood surrounded by corrals and outbuildings, with the vast Nevada landscape stretching in all directions. It was beautiful in a stark, honest way. Adam showed her inside, and Grace was pleasantly surprised by the interior. The furniture was simple but well made, and everything was clean and orderly. He had prepared the spare bedroom for her with fresh linens and even a small vase of wildflowers on the dresser. "I will let you rest and freshen up," Adam said, setting her trunk down. "There is water in the pitcher, and I will make us some supper in about an hour." "You cook?" Grace asked, surprised. He grinned. "I have been living alone for 3 years now. I learned quick, or I would have starved." That evening they shared a simple meal of beef stew and bread. Adam was not a talkative man, but his silence was comfortable rather than awkward. He asked her polite questions about her journey and her life back east, and Grace answered as truthfully as she could without revealing too much. "I was a governess for a family in Philadelphia," she said, which was true. "But the position ended and I had no family left. Your advertisement seemed like an opportunity for a fresh start. What happened to your family, if you do not mind my asking?" "My mother died 2 years ago. Consumption." "My father passed when I was young. I am sorry." Adam's eyes were sincere. "My parents are both gone too. My father died in a riding accident and my mother from a fever a year later. I have a sister in California, married with children, but we do not see each other often." They talked late into the evening, and Grace found herself relaxing despite her fears. Adam was easy to be around, honest and straightforward. He told her about the ranch, about his plans to expand, about the challenges of ranching in Nevada. In turn, she told him about books she loved, about teaching children, about small, safe pieces of her past. When she finally retired to her room, Grace lay in the comfortable bed and stared at the ceiling. She had to tell him. She could not build a life on lies, but fear kept her silent. The next morning, Grace woke to the sound of roosters and the smell of coffee. She dressed quickly and found Adam already working outside. She spent the day exploring the ranch and trying to make herself useful. She cleaned the already clean house, prepared lunch, and attempted to start a garden plot near the kitchen door. Adam came in for the midday meal dusty and tired, but he smiled when he saw the food she had prepared. "This is good," he said, tasting the chicken and vegetables she had made. "Better than anything I have cooked in a long time." "I enjoy cooking," Grace said. "It is nice to have someone to cook for." Days turned into a week, and Grace fell into the rhythm of ranch life. She and Adam worked well together, and she found herself genuinely enjoying his company. He was thoughtful and hardworking, with a dry sense of humor that surprised her. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the sun set over the mountains, talking about everything and nothing. Grace had almost convinced herself that her past would not catch up with her, that she could have this simple, happy life. Then, 10 days after her arrival, Adam came back from town with a grim expression. "Grace, we need to talk." Her heart sank. She followed him inside, her hands trembling. Adam pulled a folded paper from his pocket and laid it on the table. It was a wanted poster with a crude sketch that looked enough like her to be recognizable. The words leaped out at her. "Wanted for theft. Grace Jameson. Reward of $500. "I saw this at the sheriff's office," Adam said quietly. "They just came in today. The sheriff was showing them around." Grace felt the world tilt. She gripped the edge of the table, trying to breathe. "Adam, I can explain." "Then explain." His voice was not angry, just steady and serious. The words tumbled out of her in a rush. She told him everything about working for the Harrington family in Philadelphia, about how she had cared for their 3 children for 2 years. She explained that Marcus Harrington, the eldest son, had developed an unwanted interest in her, and when she had refused his advances, he had become vengeful. She told Adam about the money that had gone missing from old Mr. Harrington's office, about how the evidence had been planted in her room, about how she had fled in the night because she knew no one would believe her word against theirs. "I did not steal anything," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I swear to you, Adam, I am not a thief, but Marcus Harrington is powerful and influential and I am nobody. They would have hanged me or sent me to prison for years." Adam listened to everything without interrupting. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment, studying her face. "I believe you," he finally said. Grace's legs nearly gave out. "You do? I have spent every day for the past week and a half with you, Grace. I am a pretty good judge of character, and you are not a thief. You are a good woman who got caught in a bad situation. But what do we do?" Grace whispered. "They will find me. The sheriff will recognize me eventually." Adam stood and began to pace, his mind clearly working. "We need to keep you hidden until we can figure out how to clear your name." "How can we possibly do that? I have no proof of my innocence." "Then we will find proof, or we will find a way to make the Harringtons admit what they did." Adam's jaw was set with determination. "But first, we need to make sure you are safe." "The sheriff, Tom Crawford, he is a decent man, but he follows the law. If he realizes you are here, he will have to arrest you." "Maybe I should just leave," Grace said miserably. "I should not have come here. I should not have put you in this position." "You are not leaving." Adam's voice was firm. He crossed to her and took her hands in his. "Grace, in the short time you have been here, this place has felt more like a home than it has in years. I will not let you run again. We will figure this out together." His hands were warm and calloused, and Grace felt something crack open in her chest. No one had ever stood by her like this, had ever chosen to believe her when it would have been easier not to. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Adam looked at her for a long moment, his dark eyes intense. "Because I care about you, because I believe in you. And because I think I am falling in love with you, Grace Jameson." Grace could not speak. She just stared at him, this good, honest man who was willing to risk everything for her. "You do not have to say anything," Adam continued. "I know it is fast, and I know you have enough to worry about. But I wanted you to know where I stand." Grace stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. Adam held her tightly, and for the first time since she had fled Philadelphia, Grace felt safe. They spent the rest of that day planning. Adam decided that Grace would stay at the ranch and avoid going into town. If anyone came by unexpectedly, she would hide in the cellar beneath the house, which could be accessed through a trap door in the kitchen. It was not a perfect solution, but it would buy them time. Over the following weeks, Adam made discreet inquiries about the Harrington family whenever he went to town. He sent letters to contacts he had in other territories, trying to gather information. Meanwhile, Grace stayed hidden, spending her days working around the ranch and her evenings with Adam. Their relationship deepened during this time. The danger and secrecy forced them to rely on each other completely, and what might have taken months to develop happened in weeks. They talked about everything, shared their hopes and fears, and grew closer with each passing day. One evening, about a month after Grace's confession, Adam came home from town with interesting news. "I spoke with a traveling merchant today," he said as they sat down to dinner. "He had been through Philadelphia recently. He mentioned that there was talk about the Harrington family, about how Marcus Harrington has gotten himself into trouble gambling. Apparently, he owes significant debts to some dangerous people." Grace's eyes widened. "The money that went missing. What if Marcus took it himself to pay his debts, and he blamed me to cover his tracks?" "That is exactly what I was thinking." Adam leaned forward. If we could prove that Marcus had gambling debts and needed money, it might cast doubt on the charges against you. But how do we prove it from all the way out here? Adam was quiet for a moment. I have been thinking about that. I have a friend, Benjamin Carter, who is a lawyer in Carson City. He is a good man, someone I served with in the army years ago. If I write to him, explain the situation, he might be able to help us build a case. Adam, that could take months, and in the meantime I am putting you at risk every day I am here. I do not care about the risk, Adam said firmly. He reached across the table and took her hand. Grace, I meant what I said before. I love you. I want you to stay here not just until this is resolved, but forever. I want you to be my wife. Grace felt tears well up. I love you too, Adam. I think I started falling for you the moment I arrived. But I cannot marry you with this hanging over my head. I cannot let you tie yourself to a wanted woman. Then we will clear your name first, Adam said. But know this, Grace. I am already tied to you. My heart made that decision on its own. Grace stood and walked around the table to him. Adam pulled her onto his lap and she cupped his face in her hands. You are the best man I have ever known, she whispered. Adam kissed her then, tender and sweet, and Grace felt something in her soul settle. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The next morning, Adam composed a detailed letter to his friend Benjamin Carter, explaining everything about Grace's situation. He included every fact they knew about the Harringtons, about Marcus's gambling, about the circumstances of the theft. He asked Benjamin to investigate discreetly and see if there was any way to build a defense or uncover the truth. Weeks passed with no response, and Grace grew increasingly anxious. She knew that every day she stayed, she was putting Adam in more danger. If the law discovered he was harboring her, he could be arrested as well. But Adam refused to discuss her leaving. Then one hot afternoon in late July, a rider approached the ranch. Grace barely had time to slip into the cellar before Adam answered the door. From her hiding place, Grace could hear muffled voices. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She pressed her ear to the floorboards, trying to make out the conversation. Just routine, Adam, she heard a man say. It sounded like Sheriff Crawford. We are checking all the ranches in the area. There is a woman wanted back east, and word is she might have headed this way. I heard about that in town, Adam replied, his voice calm. You think she is around here? Could be. Pretty woman, red hair, green eyes, goes by Grace Jameson. You have not seen anyone like that? No, sir. It has been just me out here, same as always. There was a pause and Grace held her breath. Mind if I look around? The sheriff asked. Grace's blood ran cold. The cellar was hidden, but if the sheriff looked carefully enough, he might notice the trap door. Of course, Adam said easily. Come on in. Grace heard footsteps above her head as the men walked through the house. She pressed herself into the corner of the cellar, trying to make herself as small as possible. Dust motes danced in the thin streams of light coming through the cracks in the floorboards. The minutes felt like hours. Finally, she heard the sheriff's voice again. Looks fine. Sorry to trouble you, Adam. If you see or hear anything, you will let me know, of course, Tom. Always happy to help the law. After the sheriff left, Adam waited a full 30 minutes before opening the cellar. Grace climbed out, shaking. That was too close, she said, her voice trembling. Adam pulled her into his arms. I know, but you are safe. That is what matters. Adam, maybe I should turn myself in. Maybe I should go back to Philadelphia and face the charges. At least then you would not be at risk. No. Adam's voice was firm. We are not giving up, we just need more time. The next week brought a break they desperately needed. A letter arrived from Benjamin Carter, and Adam tore it open eagerly. Grace stood beside him as he read, watching his expression shift from concentration to something like hope. "Benjamin has been investigating," Adam said, scanning the pages quickly. "He has a contact in Philadelphia, another lawyer who has been asking questions. It turns out Marcus Harrington has been in trouble multiple times for gambling. His father has paid off his debts before, but this last time, the amount was too large. Benjamin's contact spoke with some of the people Marcus owed money to, and they confirmed that Marcus paid them off about a week after the theft was reported. That proves he had money when he should not have," Grace said, excitement building in her chest. "There is more," Adam continued. "Benjamin's contact also found one of the Harrington housemaids who was dismissed around the same time you left. She was willing to talk, and she told him that she saw Marcus going through your things the night before the theft was discovered. She did not say anything at the time because she was afraid of losing her position, but now she is willing to testify." Grace felt dizzy with hope. "That could change everything. Benjamin thinks we have enough for him to petition for a dismissal of charges, or at least a new investigation. But he needs you to write out a detailed statement of everything that happened, and he needs me to testify that you have been here and have shown no signs of dishonesty or theft." "Will that be enough?" "Benjamin thinks so. He is going to present everything to a judge in Philadelphia. He has a good relationship with Judge Harrison, who is known for being fair-minded. If we can create reasonable doubt about your guilt, the charges should be dropped." For the first time in months, Grace allowed herself to hope. Over the next several days, Grace wrote out everything she could remember about her time with the Harrington family and the events surrounding the theft. She included every detail, no matter how small, about Marcus's inappropriate behavior and the circumstances of her dismissal. Adam added his own statement, describing Grace's character and behavior since she had arrived in Eureka. They sent the documents to Benjamin by express mail, paying extra to ensure they would arrive quickly. Then came the hardest part, waiting. During those weeks of waiting, Grace and Adam grew even closer. They spent their evenings talking about the future they hoped to have together. Adam shared his dreams of expanding the ranch, of raising cattle and horses, of building a family. Grace talked about the children she hoped to have, about growing old together in this wild, beautiful place. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky, Adam turned to Grace with a serious expression. "Whatever happens with the case," he said, "I want you to know that my feelings will not change. Even if we have to run, even if we have to start over somewhere else, I will be by your side." Grace took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I never thought I could feel this way about anyone," she admitted. "When I first came here, I was so afraid and alone. You gave me hope, Adam. You gave me a reason to fight." Adam pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. The cattle lowing in the distance, the horses shifting in their corral, the whisper of wind through the sagebrush. It was peaceful, and Grace tried to memorize every detail, just in case. August turned to September, and still no word came from Benjamin. Grace tried to stay busy, helping with the ranch work and the endless household tasks, but the waiting was wearing on both of them. Adam made his trips to town as infrequent as possible, worried that someone might ask questions about why he suddenly needed so many supplies for one person. Then, on a cool morning in mid-September, a telegram arrived. Adam had gone to town for salt and sugar, and when he returned, his face was unreadable. Grace met him at the door, her heart in her throat. "What is it?" Adam handed her the telegram, and Grace read it with shaking hands. Charges dismissed. Stop. Judge ruled insufficient evidence. Stop. Made testimony and gambling debts. Created reasonable doubt. Stop. Grace Jameson free to return. Stop. Congratulations. Stop. Benjamin Carter. Grace read it twice, then a third time, unable to believe what she was seeing. "It is over," she whispered. "Adam, it is really over." Adam let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around. Grace laughed and cried at the same time, clinging to him. When he set her down, she saw that his eyes were wet too. "You are free," he said, cupping her face in his hands. "Grace, you are free." They held each other for a long time, both of them overwhelmed by relief and joy. When they finally pulled apart, Adam kept his hands on her shoulders. "So," he said, a smile playing at his lips, "now that you are no longer a wanted woman, will you marry me?" "Properly this time, with a proposal and everything," Grace laughed, wiping at her tears. "Are you asking?" Adam dropped to one knee right there in the doorway. "Grace Jameson, you are the strongest, bravest, most wonderful woman I have ever known. You have made this house a home and my life complete. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," Grace said, pulling him to his feet. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They married 2 weeks later in the little church in Eureka, with half the town in attendance. Grace wore a simple white dress that she and Adam had bought together on a trip to Carson City, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers that Adam had picked that morning. Sheriff Crawford attended, having been let in on the secret after the charges were dropped, and he shook Adam's hand and congratulated them both. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. The preacher, an old man named Reverend Matthews, spoke about love and commitment and faith. When Adam slipped the simple gold band on Grace's finger, she felt like her heart might burst from happiness. They kissed to cheers and applause, and Grace thought that she had never been so happy in her entire life. The reception was held at the saloon, which had been cleaned and decorated for the occasion. The townspeople brought food and gifts, and there was music and dancing late into the night. Grace found herself swept up in the joy of it all, dancing with Adam and laughing with the women of Eureka who had welcomed her so warmly once they learned her story. "You are one lucky woman," Mary Henderson, the wife of the general store owner, told Grace during a quiet moment. "Adam Zimmerman is the best man in this territory, and he clearly adores you." "I know," Grace said, watching her new husband across the room. "I am the luckiest woman alive." That night, Adam carried Grace over the threshold of their home, and they began their married life together in truth. He was gentle and patient, and Grace felt safe and loved in his arms. They made love slowly, learning each other, and afterward they lay tangled together talking until the sun began to rise. "I cannot believe this is real," Grace murmured, her head on Adam's chest. "6 months ago I was running for my life. Now I am married to you in this beautiful place, completely free." "It is real," Adam assured her, pressing a kiss to her forehead, "and it is just the beginning." The months that followed were the happiest of Grace's life. She and Adam settled into married life with ease, working together to build their ranch and their future. They added more cattle, improved the outbuildings, and Grace started a proper garden that yielded vegetables through the fall. Winter came, harsh and cold, but Grace did not mind. She spent the long evenings by the fire with Adam, reading, talking, and planning for the spring. They hosted dinners for friends from town and spent quiet Sundays together, sometimes riding out to explore the beautiful Nevada landscape. In February, Grace realized she was pregnant. She told Adam one snowy evening, nervously watching his face for his reaction. "A baby," Adam repeated, his eyes wide. "Grace, are you sure?" "I am sure. The doctor in town confirmed it this morning when you were at the Hendersons' ranch." Adam let out a shout of joy and picked her up carefully, mindful of her condition. "This is the best news, the very best news." "You are happy?" Grace asked, laughing at his enthusiasm. "Happy, Grace, I am overjoyed. We are going to be parents." Adam became even more protective after that, insisting that Grace not overdo anything. She found it endearing and exasperating in equal measure, but she loved him all the more for it. He built a cradle during the winter months, carefully sanding and finishing the wood until it was smooth and beautiful. Spring came, and with it new life everywhere. The cattle had their calves, the horses their foals, and Grace's belly grew round with their child. She felt wonderful despite the occasional discomfort, and she loved watching Adam's face when he felt the baby kick. "He is going to be strong," Adam would say, his hand on her stomach. "She is going to be stubborn," Grace would counter, and they would laugh together. The baby arrived in early September, a full year after Grace's charges had been dismissed. The labor was long and difficult, but Adam stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand and encouraging her. When their son finally entered the world with a loud, healthy cry, Grace saw tears streaming down Adam's face. "A boy," the doctor announced, placing the squalling infant on Grace's chest. "A fine, healthy boy." Grace looked down at her son, at his red face and tiny fists, and felt overwhelming love. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." Adam touched the baby's head with one finger, his touch infinitely gentle. "He is perfect, Grace, absolutely perfect." They named him Thomas, after Adam's father, and he became the center of their world. Grace loved being a mother, though it was exhausting. Adam was a devoted father, getting up with her for nighttime feedings and changing diapers without complaint. The ranch became a home filled with love and laughter. When Thomas was 6 months old, Grace received a letter that surprised her. It was from Eleanor Harrington, the lady of the Harrington house, the woman Grace had worked for in Philadelphia. With trembling hands, Grace opened it and read, "Dear Mrs. Zimmerman, I hope this letter finds you well. I must begin by offering you my sincerest apologies for what my family put you through. When the truth came out about Marcus's gambling debts and his theft of the money, I was horrified to learn how he had framed you to cover his crimes. I should have listened to you. I should have questioned the evidence more thoroughly. You were a wonderful governess to my children, and you were treated abominably. Marcus has been sent away to a facility back east to deal with his problems. My husband and I have set up a trust fund in your name as small compensation for what you endured. Your lawyer, Mr. Carter, has the details. I understand if you can never forgive us, but I wanted you to know how deeply sorry I am. I hope you have found happiness in your new life." With sincere regrets, Eleanor Harrington Grace showed the letter to Adam that evening, and they sat together on the porch, Thomas sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Will you accept the money?" Adam asked. Grace thought about it for a long moment. "Yes," she finally said. "Not because we need it, but because it is an acknowledgement of what was done to me. And maybe we can use it to help others somehow, people who have been falsely accused and have no one to help them." "That is a good idea," Adam agreed. "You have a generous heart, Grace Zimmerman." "I learned it from you," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "The money from the Harringtons, when it came, was substantial." Adam and Grace discussed what to do with it at length, and finally decided to set up a fund with Benjamin Carter's help to provide legal assistance to people who could not afford lawyers, but had been wrongly accused of crimes. They called it the Second Chance Fund, and Benjamin agreed to administer it from his office in Carson City. Life continued its steady rhythm. Thomas grew from an infant to a toddler, walking and then running around the ranch, getting into everything with gleeful determination. He had Grace's green eyes and Adam's dark hair, and he was fearless and curious. When Thomas was 2 years old, Grace discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the news was greeted with excited anticipation rather than nervous joy. Thomas seemed to understand that something was changing, and he would pat Grace's growing belly and say, "Baby," with pride. Their daughter arrived on a cool spring morning, slipping into the world much more easily than Thomas had. She was tiny and perfect, with wisps of auburn hair and Adam's dark eyes. "What should we name her?" Adam asked, holding his daughter with practiced ease. "Rose," Grace said immediately, "after your mother." Adam's eyes filled with tears. "Rose, it is perfect." Rose was a quiet baby, content to observe the world with solemn eyes. Thomas adored his little sister and was constantly trying to help take care of her, bringing her his favorite toys and singing to her in his toddler voice. The ranch continued to prosper. Adam's reputation as an honest rancher and breeder of quality cattle spread, and they were able to expand their operation significantly. They hired a few ranch hands to help with the work, which freed up more time for Adam to spend with his growing family. Grace often thought about how different her life might have been if she had not gotten on that stagecoach to Nevada, if she had not met Adam. She could have ended up in prison or dead, but instead, she had found a love deeper than she had ever imagined possible, and a life richer than any dream. One evening, when Thomas was 5 and Rose was 3, the family sat together on the porch watching the sunset. Thomas was telling them an elaborate story about the adventures he had with the ranch dog that day, and Rose was nestled in Adam's lap, playing with his fingers. Grace looked at her husband and children at the home they had built together and felt profound gratitude. Adam caught her looking and smiled, that warm smile that still made her heart skip. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "Just that I am happy," Grace said simply. "Completely, wonderfully happy." "Me too," Adam said, reaching for her hand. As the sun set over the Nevada mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, Grace reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had been running from the law, terrified and alone, and she had found so much more than safety. She had found home. She had found love. She had found herself. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. Thomas grew into a responsible young boy who loved the ranch and helped his father with increasing skill. Rose developed a love for reading and would spend hours with the books that Grace ordered from back east. Grace and Adam added 2 more children to their family, another son they named James and a second daughter they named Clara. The ranch grew and prospered beyond what Adam had ever imagined in those early days. The Second Chance Fund helped dozens of people over the years, providing legal help to those who needed it most. Grace corresponded regularly with Benjamin Carter, hearing stories of lives changed and justice served. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Grace with a trip to San Francisco to visit his sister. It was the first time they had left the ranch for more than a day or two, and they left the children in the capable hands of their ranch foreman and his wife. The trip was magical. They stayed in a hotel, ate in restaurants, and walked along the waterfront holding hands like young lovers. Grace bought gifts for the children, and Adam bought her a beautiful necklace with an emerald that matched her eyes. 10 years, Adam said one night as they stood on their hotel balcony looking at the lights of the city. "It feels like both forever and no time at all." "I know what you mean," Grace said, leaning into him. "I cannot imagine my life without you, and yet I remember so clearly the day I arrived in Eureka, so afraid and uncertain." "I fell in love with you that first day," Adam admitted. "I know I did not say it for a while, but I knew. I saw you step down from that stagecoach and something in me just knew." Grace turned to face him, cupping his face in her hands. "You saved my life, Adam Zimmerman. In every way a person can be saved." "No," Adam said, kissing her softly. "We saved each other." They returned home to chaos and joy, with all four children talking over each other to tell them everything that had happened while they were gone. The house felt full and alive, exactly as a home should be. As the children grew older, Grace told them the story of how she and Adam had met, though she softened some of the details for the younger ones. She wanted them to know that their mother had faced difficulties and overcome them, that she had been afraid but found courage, that love could change everything. Thomas, at 15, was already as tall as his father and worked the ranch like a man grown. Rose, at 13, was beautiful and intelligent, with dreams of becoming a teacher like her mother had once been. James, at 9, was adventurous and always getting into mischief, and Clara, at 7, was sweet-natured and loved helping her mother with everything from cooking to gardening. Grace sometimes worked with women in town who found themselves in difficult situations, offering advice and help when she could. Her story had spread over the years, and she had become someone that women knew they could turn to. She helped several young women find respectable work, wrote character references, and even took in a young widow and her baby for a few months until the woman could get back on her feet. "You are making a real difference," Adam told her one evening after she had spent the afternoon helping organize a fundraiser for the church's charity work. "I am just passing on what was given to me," Grace said. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. I want to do the same for others." On their 20th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Adam's sister and her family made the journey from California, and several of their friends from town and surrounding ranches came to help them celebrate. It was a joyous occasion, filled with food and laughter and music. As Grace looked around at all the people they loved, at the life they had built, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She caught Adam's eye across the room, and he made his way to her, pulling her into his arms for a dance even though there was no music playing at that moment. 20 years, he murmured, holding her close. "And I love you more today than I did the day we married." "I love you too," Grace said, resting her head against his chest. "Thank you for taking a chance on a mail-order bride running from the law." Adam laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "Best decision I ever made." The children all found their own paths as they grew. Thomas took over more and more of the ranch operations, working alongside his father and eventually bringing his own bride home, a sweet girl from town named Sarah. Rose went to teacher's college in Carson City and came back to teach in the Eureka school. James decided he wanted to study law, inspired by the stories of Benjamin Carter and the Second Chance Fund, and eventually became a lawyer himself. Clara married a young doctor and settled in Eureka, giving Grace and Adam their first grandchildren. As Grace entered her 50s and then her 60s, she remained active and engaged with life. She and Adam still took evening rides together, though now at a more sedate pace. They still talked for hours, never running out of things to say to each other. They still held hands like young lovers, still looked at each other with eyes full of love. On a warm summer evening, when Grace was 65 and Adam was 70, they sat together on their porch just as they had thousands of times before. Their children and grandchildren had just left after a Sunday dinner, and the house was quiet again. "I have been thinking," Adam said, his voice still strong despite his years, "about how lucky I am, about how one decision to place that advertisement for a bride changed everything." "I have been thinking about that too," Grace admitted, "about how terrified I was when I stepped off that stagecoach and how you made everything right." "We made everything right," Adam corrected gently. "Together." Grace leaned her head on his shoulder, contentment filling her. She thought about the girl she had been, running from Philadelphia with nothing but fear and hope. She thought about the man who had chosen to believe in her, to hide her, to fight for her innocence. She thought about the love that had grown between them, strong and true and lasting. "Do you have any regrets?" Adam asked. Grace considered the question seriously. She thought about the hardships they had faced, the lean years and the harsh winters, the challenges of raising 4 children and running a ranch. She thought about the moments of fear and uncertainty. "Not a single one," she said finally. "Every moment, good and difficult, led us here, and here is exactly where I want to be." Adam pressed a kiss to her temple. "Me too, my love, me too." As the sun set over the Nevada mountains one more time, casting long shadows across the ranch they had built together, Grace Jameson Zimmerman reflected on the truth she had learned over their life together. Love was not just about the easy moments or the passionate ones, though they had shared plenty of both. Love was about choosing each other every day, about standing together through storms, about building something beautiful and lasting from nothing but faith and commitment. She had come to Eureka running from the law, a frightened woman with nowhere else to turn. She had found a cowboy willing to risk everything to protect her, to believe in her innocence, to fight for her freedom. Together, they had cleared her name and built a life beyond anything either of them could have imagined alone. Years continued to roll by, each season bringing its familiar rhythms. Adam and Grace celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The party was held at the ranch, which Thomas and his wife now ran while Adam served as advisor and occasional helper. Grace's hair had gone completely silver, but her green eyes were as bright as ever. Adam moved a bit slower these days, but his love for Grace had never dimmed. They still shared the same room, the same bed, still reached for each other in the night. 50 years, Grace marveled as they cut the cake together. "Half a century with you, Adam Zimmerman." "Best 50 years of my life," Adam replied, to cheers and applause from their family. Rose, now 51 and a respected teacher with grown children of her own, stood to give a toast. "To my parents," she said, raising her glass, "who taught us that love conquers all, that honesty and integrity matter, and that family is everything. Thank you for showing us what a true partnership looks like." Everyone drank to that, and Grace felt tears prick her eyes. She looked at Adam and saw his eyes were wet too. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home and the ranch was quiet, Grace and Adam walked slowly to their favorite spot overlooking the valley. The moon was full and bright, casting everything in silver light. "Do you remember the night I told you I was wanted by the law?" Grace asked, taking Adam's hand. "Of course," Adam said. "I remember being so afraid I might lose you, but knowing I would do whatever it took to keep you safe." "You did," Grace said softly. "You kept me safe, you cleared my name, and you loved me through everything. I could not have asked for a better partner in life." "The feeling is entirely mutual," Adam assured her, pulling her close. "You brought light and love into my life, Grace. You made everything better just by being you." They stood there together under the stars, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a beautiful life together. The ranch sprawled below them, peaceful and prosperous. Their family was healthy and happy. The love they had nurtured for 50 years was as strong as ever. Grace thought about the wanted poster that had once hung in the sheriff's office, about the fear that had driven her west, about the desperate hope she had felt stepping off that stagecoach. She thought about Adam's steadfast belief in her innocence, his determination to clear her name, his willingness to risk everything for her. "I would do it all again," she said suddenly. "Every moment, Every hardship, every fear, I would do it all again to end up here with you. Adam kissed her, gentle and sweet, a kiss that spoke of decades of love and intimacy. So would I, my darling, so would I. As they made their way back to the house, walking slowly and leaning on each other, Grace felt profound peace. She had run from the law and found love. She had been accused falsely and been vindicated. She had been afraid and found courage. Most importantly, she had found Adam, and together they had built something beautiful and lasting. The legacy they left was not just in the prosperous ranch or the successful children, but in the example of their love. They had shown everyone who knew them what true partnership looked like, what it meant to stand by someone through thick and thin, what it meant to choose love every single day. Grace Jameson Zimmerman had started her life in Nevada as a mail-order bride running from the law. She was ending it as a beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, respected and cherished by all who knew her. The cowboy who had hidden her and cleared her name had become the love of her life, her partner in everything, the man who made every day better just by being in it. On a peaceful autumn morning, when Grace was 82, she passed away quietly in her sleep with Adam holding her hand. Adam followed her just 6 months later, unable to bear being without his beloved wife. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the vast Nevada sky they had both loved so much. Their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren gathered to remember them, sharing stories of their love and devotion. Thomas spoke of his father's unwavering integrity and his mother's compassionate heart. Rose told the story of how her parents had met and fallen in love, making it sound like the romance it had been. James talked about the Second Chance Fund and how his parents had turned Grace's experience into something that helped countless others. Clara simply said that her parents had shown her what true love looked like, and she had tried to model her own marriage after theirs. The ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's management, passed down through generations bearing the values that Grace and Adam had instilled. The Second Chance Fund continued its work, helping those who needed legal assistance but could not afford it. The story of the mail-order bride who had been running from the law and the cowboy who had hidden her and cleared her name became a family legend, passed down to each new generation as an example of love, courage, and unwavering faith. Years later, one of Grace's great-great-granddaughters stood on that same hill overlooking the ranch, reading the simple inscription on the shared headstone. Grace and Adam Zimmerman. Together in life, together in eternity. Their love changed the world. The young woman traced the letters with her finger and smiled. She had heard the stories all her life, about her remarkable ancestors who had built this ranch and this family on a foundation of love and trust. She understood now what a gift they had given to all who came after them, showing that true love could overcome any obstacle, that faith in each other was the strongest force in the world. The sun set over the Nevada mountains, just as it had every day for more than a century. But the legacy of Grace and Adam Zimmerman lived on in the lives they had touched, the family they had built, and the love story that had become legend. Their journey from strangers brought together by a mail-order bride advertisement to soulmates who could not bear to be apart, had inspired generations, and would continue to inspire generations yet to come. In the end, their story was simple. Two people who found each other, chose each other, and loved each other with everything they had. Grace had been running from the law, terrified and alone. Adam had hidden her, fought for her, and cleared her name. Together, they had built a life of love, purpose, and profound happiness. And that love, that choice they made every day to stand together, had created something beautiful that would last far beyond their own lifetimes, a testament to the transformative power of love and the strength of the human spirit.